Straight ahead on Law&Crime Daily. Emotional testimony in Minnesota from those closest to Daunte Wright.
It was the worst day of my life.
Your boyfriend was shot right in front of you, right?
Yes.
The jury headed to deliberation after closing arguments in the trial of accused murderer Lynlee Renick.
Somebody used a gun out there. I submit to you it was Lynlee, but even if it was Michael, the evidence proves she's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Plus,
State of Florida versus Nikolas Cruz, the continuation of pretrial motions.
the Parkland Shooter's defense team motions to remove the death penalty ahead of next month's sentencing. And later,
Scott Peterson is innocent.
convicted wife killer Scott Peterson is resentenced as his family maintains his innocence. Law&Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law&Crime Daily. I'm Bryant Buckmeyer along with Terry Austin. Emotional testimony begins day 2 of Minnesota versus Kim Potter, where the prosecution's first witness of the day is Daunte Wright's girlfriend, the woman who sat beside him as he was shot and killed. Ex-Minnesota officer Kim Potter faces first and second-degree manslaughter charges in the death of 20-year-old Wright. When officers pulled Wright over during a traffic stop, they discovered a warrant was out for his arrest. After that, there was a struggle between Wright and the officers. Potter, a 26-year veteran of the force, shot Wright in the chest. He died as a result of the injuries. Potter maintained she accidentally grabbed her gun. Body camera and squad car footage of the incident were shown during opening statements.
He shot me. I just shot him. Yes! I grabbed the wrong gun!
As its first witness, the prosecution called Katie Bryant, the mother of Daunte Wright. She described what she saw after she arrived at the scene.
I went under the yellow tape because I seen a car crash, and I noticed it was my son's car. And then in the front of his car is where he was laying.
Did you see your son's body on the ground?
I did.
So what did you do when you got to that area?
I was so distraught. I didn't know what was happening. I just got off the phone and they said he shot him, but I seen a car crash. I was asking questions. I didn't want to believe that that was my son laying there on the ground, but I could tell it was him because of his tennis shoes.
The prosecution then showed jurors never-before-seen body cam footage of Bryant's first moments at the scene.
You guys shot him. Why?
I don't know. I wasn't here.
Why? Because he had a warrant? Are you serious? I was here. I watched it.
Can you sit down? Tell me what's going on, because I wasn't here.
No. Where's the girl that was in the car with him? You guys made her hang up Facebook Live so you could kill my son. That's pretty pathetic.
And then what's your son's name?
Daunte Wright. It was not a high-speed chase. You guys shot him in a pullover traffic.
I didn't do anything, ma'am.
Yeah, you did. He was laying in his front seat dead. His girlfriend Facebooked me. How did his car get smashed?
At the start of day 2, the prosecution called Elena Albrecht Payton, Daunte Wright's girlfriend and the woman in the passenger seat at the time of the shooting. She told jurors what happened just moments after the shooting.
I just grabbed whatever it was and put it on his chest, like you see in movies and TV shows. I didn't know what to do, so I just put my hands over his chest and I just tried to hold it, and I was just trying to scream his name. And I was just trying to have him talk to me, and just kept saying, Dante, like, just say something, please, like, just talk to me. And he just couldn't. Like, I know he tried, like, I know he wanted to. Because I replay that image in my head daily.
Joining us today is criminal defense attorney Taylor Koss and Terry Austin. Taylor, body-worn camera has shown how Potter reacted, saying she killed a boy and is going to jail. What do you think she was worried about after the shooting, and how would that play out in this case?
Thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure. You know, this is remarkable. Body camera has changed the way that trials are, move forward. The jurors get to see things that in the past they've only heard about, and now they get to see it with their own two eyes. And what we have here is essentially either a real-time reaction or pretty quick thinking on her feet. It seems genuine. It seems a genuine reaction. And what she's realizing in those milliseconds right then and there is that she's in big trouble. And guess what? She is. And, this video right here highlights why police training in this country needs to be rethought. People shouldn't be on the street with deadly weapons until they are overly to the point where a mistake like this could never happen.
Yes, and Terry, Daunte Wright's mother and girlfriend have now given us a glimpse of what happened that day. What do you think the jury took away from their testimony?
Bryant, I've seen a lot of family members testify, but never have I seen two witnesses who were so emotional and so convincing. Katie Bryant, the mother, was talking about the confusion at the scene, and her tears were real. The fact that she could not get to her son. As a mother, I can completely relate to that. And Elena Payton described what she saw. She sat there in the front seat of that car and saw her boyfriend getting shot and killed. It had to be traumatic. It had to be emotional. Great witnesses, great strategy on the part of the prosecution.
Yes, absolutely. On the next episode of Law&Crime Daily, we sit down with Wright family attorney Jeffrey Storms for his take on the first week of trial. Switching to federal court in New York, where the Ghislaine Maxwell sex crimes trial saw a shortened day on Thursday. Not long after the first witness was called, the judge was told one of the attorneys in the case was ill. She said there was no reason to believe it was COVID-19 related. Court broke for the day and is set to reconvene Friday morning. Before court broke for the day, a paralegal at FedEx took the stand to authenticate invoices associated with former financier Jeffrey Epstein's account. Maxwell's accuser, Ann Farmer, was expected to testify before court let out early. She is the last alleged victim the prosecution will call. Maxwell faces federal sex trafficking charges stemming from her relationship with Epstein. The two allegedly groomed teenage girls for sexual abuse. Epstein, Maxwell's longtime companion, was found dead by suicide after he was charged with similar crimes. Still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, the Parkland school shooter asked that the death penalty be taken off the table in his sentencing. But first, a verdict is returned in the trial of accused husband killer Lynlee Renick. What a Missouri jury decided after this.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTubeTV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTubeTV today and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTubeTV. We put you in the jury box.
Welcome back to Law&Crime Daily. The verdict is in. A Missouri jury finds 31-year-old Lynlee Renick guilty on all counts in the murder of her husband, Benjamin Renick. Renick faces up to 30 years behind bars for a second-degree murder conviction. Renick was initially charged with first-degree murder. On Thursday, a judge ordered bond be revoked and Renick remain in custody until the penalty phase. Prosecutors say she owned a spa that was losing money and that she was the sole beneficiary of her husband's $1 million life insurance policy. They say Renick hatched a plan with her ex-boyfriend Michael Humphrey and co-worker Ashley Shaw to kill 29-year-old Benjamin Renick back in 2017. Humphrey was convicted of the same charges back in October. In closing arguments on Wednesday, the prosecution told jurors that Lynlee Renick is the only one who had any reason to kill her husband.
4 people were involved in this conspiracy. Of those 4 people, only one person had a motive to kill Ben. Only one person of those 4 people had a connection to all 4 people. Of those 4 people, only one person, in covering up this crime, listened to the Facebook chatter and social media chatter and decided to help cover up this crime by casting attention and the scent of law enforcement away on the victim's brother. Only one person continues to lie. Of those 4 people, that one person is the defendant, Lynlee Renick.
In closing, the defense argued Benjamin Renick's murder was not being planned, but that Ashley Shaw wanted to help Lynlee get out of her marriage. They claim Michael Humphrey, Lynlee's alleged cohort, had motive to kill Benjamin Renick.
I submit to you the evidence shows these women, Ashley and Lynlee, were planning a divorce. They pick up Michael Humphrey. Michael Humphrey is a meth addict. He uses methamphetamine regularly. He doesn't like Ben. This is his ex-girlfriend. He asks a neighbor, how do you get somebody to stop abusing their wife? Why would he ask that if, like what Ashley Shaw said, he already agreed to kill Ben after a day? If you've already agreed to kill somebody within a couple of hours, why are you going to be asking your neighbor how to get that person to stop beating their wife? The answer is because Michael Humphrey, in his meth-addled brain scoured down to sub-idiot quality, is thinking to himself, I'm going to take a gun, and I hope he does do something, because then I can shoot him, and maybe I can get back with Lynlee.
Back to discuss the verdict in Lynlee Renick's trial is criminal defense attorney Taylor Koss and Terry Austin. Terry, a 12-hour verdict. Did you think the jury would be grappling with any fact, or did you expect a verdict this soon?
Actually, I thought the verdict would come in 2 hours. The evidence was overwhelming. They had the 2 main individuals who were involved in this conspiracy. They had Ashley Shaw, who was the co-worker, and she helped plan the whole thing. And while her credibility, in my opinion, was a little questionable because she had all the charges dropped, she was very credible on the stand. And forget it, Michael Humphrey, the ex-boyfriend, he had nothing to lose. He testified on the stand, but he still was going to be in jail for the rest of his life. Nothing to lose, very credible. They were all involved, and I'm surprised it took as long as it did, but finally the verdict came back guilty on all counts.
All right, so maybe 10 hours too long, but Taylor, let's ask this question. Guilty verdicts can come about in one of 2 ways. Either the prosecution wins or the defense loses. Which do you think Renick's case was, and why?
So, building a little bit off of what Terry had said, sometimes, I would submit maybe, Brian, there's a third option. And the third option is the evidence is so strong in a case that it actually doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how strong the prosecution is or how weak the defense is. Sometimes the evidence really just speaks for itself. Now, in this case, the evidence was overwhelming. And I do think that the defense arguments were pretty weak. Suggesting that the ex-boyfriend had a motive to kill this individual was weak. It fell flat. The delivery fell flat, and I wasn't buying any of it. This is a case where I think heading into it, all observers from the outside looking in, legal observers, thought this was going to be a quick conviction. It was a quick conviction. The system worked exactly how it was supposed to work in this case, and it's a good day for justice.
All right, we'll see how justice continues as sentencing is scheduled up next for Lynlee Renick after being found guilty of all charges. On to news out of Florida, where a jury recommends a death sentence for convicted killer Markeith Lloyd. Last month, the same jury found Lloyd guilty of first-degree murder in the death of Orlando police officer Deborah Clayton. The 46-year-old shot and killed Clayton while she was trying to arrest him for the murder of his pregnant ex-girlfriend a month earlier. Lloyd avoided the death penalty in that case, but jurors recommended one in this case. Ultimately, it would be the judge's decision whether Lloyd lives or dies. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, 20 years after the murder of his wife and unborn son, Scott Peterson is resentenced to life in prison. Plus, Parkland school shooter Nikolas Cruz asks a Florida judge to remove the possibility of the death penalty. Hear her ruling ahead. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. Just months after Nikolas Cruz pleads guilty to the Parkland school shooting massacre, his defense team asked that the death penalty be taken off the table. In February 2018, Cruz opened fire at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. 17 people were killed and 17 more were injured. In October, Cruz pled guilty to all charges, apologized to the court for the shooting, and blamed drugs for the cause. A jury will hear details of the case in January and decide whether he should receive the death penalty. Ahead of that, Cruz's defense team asked the judge to remove the possibility of a death penalty sentence.
The decision to seek death or waive death, or in fact, any decisions regarding plea offers for defendants charged with homicide offenses simply had to be approved by the state attorney himself. Additionally, there is no uniform or structured procedure used by state attorney offices in other Florida circuits. Each office has its own method for making the determination as to whether it seeks the death penalty.
The prosecution countered this motion, saying capital punishment fits the severity of the crime.
That decision to seek the death penalty has been ratified by Harold Pryor, who is Mr. Sass's successor. In this case, there are 17 victims of homicide committed by this defendant over here. This is a case that calls out for the death penalty, and the death penalty is appropriate, and it is not being sought at the whim of one man, and the defendant's motion should be denied.
In the end, Judge Elizabeth Schrager ruled that the death penalty will be a possible sentence for Cruz. She also knocked down a defense request that victim impact statements not be shown publicly. Let's bring in criminal defense attorney Taylor Koss and co-host Terry Austin to discuss Cruz and the death penalty. Terry, it's a last but maybe not last-ditch effort to take the death penalty off the table. What do you think of the defense's argument to remove the death penalty?
There's no question the defense's arguments were extremely weak. Look, we have a defendant who has pled guilty to 17 counts of murder and 17 counts of attempted murder. No question, this is a death penalty case. The defense tried to claim that the death penalty was arbitrarily applied by the state. No matter what you think about past cases, this was not arbitrarily applied. The defense also tried to say that the targeted school did not disrupt a public function. That was one of the aggravating factors. Well, it did disrupt a governmental function. So the judge didn't buy any of the defense arguments, and I think that was absolutely the right decision.
Now, Taylor, I think I can guess what your answer may be, but let me try it anyways. Was the prosecution making the right arguments here to keep the death penalty off the table, or was it something else?
Yeah, listen, the death penalty and the application of the death penalty is a fairly simple but two-step process. The first step is, does the case meet the statutory requirements for the death penalty? Very easy, right? And the second step is very simple. It's called prosecutorial discretion, okay? Each case has to be looked at. You have to assess each and every mitigating and aggravating factor. You have to look each case from each other, and the district attorney, an elected official, ultimately gets to make the decision what penalty they will seek. It's not up to them to impose the penalty. It's just up to them to make a decision whether or not they're going to seek it. And it is important that prosecutors use this discretion because there shouldn't be a blanket policy. It should be each individual case assessed for strength, weaknesses, aggravating, and mitigating factors.
Yeah, I would agree. And if there's any case where the death penalty may fit, I can see why the argument would be for this one of all other cases. Still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, we head to the West Coast, where convicted murderer Scott Peterson is resentenced. When we come back, hear from both sides about Peterson's potential retrial. Welcome back to Law&Crime Daily. Convicted wife killer Scott Peterson is resentenced to life in prison without parole for the murder of his wife, Lacey, and unborn son on Christmas Eve 2002. Peterson wore a red jail jumpsuit during the hearing Wednesday. TV cameras were not allowed, but still photos capture the hearing. Lacey Peterson's mother, Sharon Rocha, and siblings spoke. Sharon Rocha said, quote, "No matter what happens, you will always be their murderer," and outlined the circumstantial evidence in the case. Peterson could get a new trial if the judge finds a juror intentionally lied to get on the jury. The 49-year-old was expected to speak at the hearing, but Judge Ann Kristen Masolo didn't allow it because the life sentence was mandatory. Peterson's attorney and sister-in-law spoke after the hearing ended.
I think he just also wanted to reach out and tell the Rocha family that he understands their feelings and he understands why they believe that he is guilty, but he wanted to make it clear that there is no way he could have possibly harmed Lacey and Connor.
This is a capital murder trial. He is in prison for murdering his wife and unborn son. There is no forensic evidence. There is no timeline to this crime. Scott Peterson is innocent. A
hearing on the jury misconduct claim will be held next February. Taylor, In a case with so many twists and turns of technical arguments, what do you think of the judge stopping Peterson from speaking? And could that create some sort of appellate issue?
I have to be honest, I don't understand it. Regardless of the fact that the sentence was mandatory, we are certainly as a country used to defendants being able to speak at their own sentence, even if it's to just show some remorse. I understand this case is riddled with a ton of history, but I just don't see the upside in refusing to let him speak. I think it's a potential error.
Yeah. Now, Terry, Peterson is still waiting for a new trial. What's next for him after the sentencing?
Peterson is going to have to wait and see. It was his team that moved for this new trial. They're claiming that there was prejudicial misconduct as far as juror number 7 was concerned. They're saying that Rochelle Neese did not disclose that she was a victim of domestic violence. She didn't disclose that she had a restraining order against her boyfriend's ex-girlfriend. And so there's also this new evidence that they are claiming that Laci Peterson was killed when she stumbled upon, the burglary. So I think in the meantime, until this hearing in late February, his attorneys are going to be trying to put together evidence for this hearing and trying to make sure that they have enough to convince the judge that he should get a new trial. Frankly, I don't think it's going to work. And I think the public outroar will be huge because there's no question based on the evidence at the trial that he committed this crime. So we'll see what happens.
All right, sounds like the end of the chapter, but not the end of the story for Scott Peterson. Thank you both. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.